I hadn't planned on staying at my stepfather's house for more than a few days. It was just supposed to be a temporary thing. My apartment had water damage, and the contractor gave me the usual week or two estimate that everyone knows means at least a month. I was out of options, and my mom was traveling abroad, so that left this place. Her new husband's house. Technically, it was theirs now, but she wasn't home, and he wasn't either. He was on one of those week-long golf retreats with his brother, somewhere out in Arizona. That left just me and her. Leah, his wife. My stepfather's second wife. They got married when I was in college, and we barely spent time together back then. She was always polite, warm in a distant sort of way. The kind of woman who made tea instead of coffee, who wore soft fabrics and walked barefoot around the house without making a sound. She smelled like jasmine and almond oil. Always looked like she'd just stepped out of a warm bath, even when it was noon. I didn't think much of her before. Back then, she was just the new wife. Now, it felt different. The first day I arrived, she welcomed me with a smile and a towel over her shoulder. She'd been cleaning the patio. Her tank top clung to her in the heat, her hair tied up, a bead of sweat running down her collarbone. I remember watching the way her lips moved when she said, "You'll be in the upstairs guest room. I already washed the sheets." The house was quiet. Too quiet. It sat on a hill just outside town, a big place with too many rooms and too much silence in the walls. Every sound felt louder here. Footsteps, cabinet doors, even the hum of the refrigerator late at night. The first few days passed in that limbo of politeness. I offered to help with little things, taking out the trash, fixing the drawer in the laundry room, reaching the top shelf in the pantry. She'd thank me with that soft smile, the kind that made her eyes linger just a second longer than needed. I tried not to notice the way her robe would fall off one shoulder in the morning, or how her voice got lower at night when we passed each other in the hallway, or how she never turned on the overhead lights, just lamps, little pools of amber warmth scattered through the house. She didn't act like a stepmom. Then again, I wasn't a stepson. One night, I stayed up late reading. I couldn't sleep. The heat pressed down through the walls, thick and unmoving, and no amount of tossing and turning helped. At some point past midnight, I gave up and pulled on a t-shirt, deciding to grab a glass of water from the kitchen. Maybe cool my head before trying again. I moved quietly. The stairs creaked under my feet. The hallway was dim, lit only by the soft glow of the light over the oven. When I turned the corner, I expected emptiness. But she was there, sitting at the kitchen island, barefoot, in a thin robe that clung to her like it had been tied in a hurry. One leg crossed over the other, a mug in her hand, phone screen glowing softly beside her. She looked up slowly, no surprise in her eyes, just something still, something calm. "Oh," she said, her voice just above a whisper. "Couldn't sleep either?" I froze, not because I was caught, but because I hadn't expected the moment to feel like that. "No," I said. "Too warm." She nodded, swirling the tea in her mug. "I get that. Summer nights here can be thick." I stepped into the kitchen, trying to act casual, though the air felt heavier now. "You always stay up this late?" She smiled faintly. "Sometimes. The house feels different after midnight, like it remembers things." That made me pause. Remembers what? She didn't answer right away, just looked at me over the rim of her cup. Then, slowly, she slid the phone aside, making room at the island. "Come sit." I hesitated, then did as she said. The stool creaked slightly as I lowered myself onto it. The stone counter was cool beneath my arms. The silence between us wasn't awkward, but it wasn't exactly comfortable either. It was alive. She took another sip, then set the mug down. "You've grown up a lot since I last saw you." I shrugged, half laughing. "I guess." "No," she said, more firmly. "You really have." Her eyes didn't leave mine. There was something in them I hadn't seen before. Not curiosity, not amusement, not maternal affection. Something else. Something I wasn't ready to name. I looked down at the mug in front of me, empty. My fingers tapped against the ceramic, anything to keep from looking up again. but I could still feel her gaze. The fridge hummed. The light buzzed faintly above us. Time moved slower in that kitchen, like we were underwater. "You always do that?" she asked softly. "Do what?" "Avoid looking at people when you're thinking about them." I swallowed hard. I wasn't. She tilted her head. "It's okay." I looked up then. She didn't flinch, didn't smile. She just looked at me. And I knew, somehow, that this night wasn't like the others. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was full of things we weren't saying. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, loud and uneven, as if my body knew something before I did. Leah didn't move. She just sat there across from me, one hand curled around the warm ceramic of her mug, the other resting flat on the counter, fingers slightly spread. I tried to focus on something else. The lamp's glow, the condensation on the fridge, the faint outline of a painting on the far wall. Anything that would dull the sharpness of her presence in this still, too quiet kitchen. "I didn't mean to wake you," I said finally, my voice lower than I expected. "You didn't," she replied. "I was already up." She paused, then added with a soft smile, "I heard you pacing." I looked at her. "You heard me?" She gave a small shrug. "The floors talk, especially when it's just the two of us." The two of us. That phrase hung there, more intimate than it should have been. She reached out and gently pushed the second mug toward me, already filled. Steam curled softly from the surface. I hadn't even noticed her make it. "I figured you'd come down eventually," she said. I hesitated, then wrapped my hands around the mug. Chamomile. No sugar. Exactly how I always drank it. "You remembered," I said. "I usually do," she murmured. Her voice was low, even, with just enough warmth to melt the edge of any doubt. But it didn't make the moment less strange. It made it stranger, like we were both pretending this was normal. Tea at midnight, robe slipping slightly off her shoulder, silence pulsing with something thick and unspeakable. She leaned back on her stool slightly, the fabric of her robe falling loose around her thigh as she crossed her legs again. I tried not to notice, but it was impossible not to. Her skin was pale, smooth, lit golden in the amber light. She didn't fix the robe, didn't shift, just watched me. "You're quiet," she said. "I don't know what to say." She tilted her head, studying me. "That's rare. You were always good with words. At least around your mom." I forced a small laugh. "Yeah, well, this isn't exactly a normal conversation." "Isn't it?" she asked. I blinked. "Is it?" She didn't answer, just reached up and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, her eyes never leaving mine. That small, graceful motion pulled my gaze along her jawline, down the curve of her neck. The robe shifted again when she moved, revealing the edge of her collarbone, the smooth dip of her shoulder. I looked away. "Sorry," I muttered. "For what?" I didn't answer. She leaned forward slightly, resting her elbows on the counter, her face closer now. Her voice dropped to a near whisper. "It's okay to look." That sentence, it didn't slam into me. It slid. Smooth. Dangerous. Like a hand on bare skin. I met her gaze again. "Leah." Her lips curved, but it wasn't a full smile. "You don't have to say anything." My mouth was dry. I took a sip of the tea, not because I wanted it, but because I needed to do something. Anything. She watched me, her eyes scanning me like she was reading pages I hadn't given her permission to open. "I've noticed," she said softly, "the way you are around me lately. The way you hesitate. The way you don't speak unless I speak first. I'm just trying to be respectful." "That's sweet," she said, and there was something in her voice, something like amusement. "But softer. But you're not a boy anymore." I swallowed. Hard. "Still. I mean, I'm not supposed to." "To what?" "To think about you that way." The sentence hung between us, trembling. She didn't look offended. She didn't even blink. If anything, her expression softened, like I'd just admitted something she already knew. "You think I don't notice?" she said quietly. "The way you pause when I walk into a room? The way your eyes follow me when you think I'm not looking?" I tried to speak, but nothing came. "I'm not blind," she added. I set the mug down carefully. Maybe I should go back upstairs. She didn't move, didn't protest. But then, just as I started to push back from the stool, she said it. Very clearly, very calmly. You can touch me if you want. The words were soft, but they hit like lightning. Not loud, just final. I froze. My breath caught somewhere between my chest and throat. I turned my head slowly, unsure if I'd misheard. But she was watching me. Still, waiting. Her face didn't change. She didn't laugh, didn't tease. She wasn't testing me. It wasn't a joke. It was an invitation. But it wasn't desperate or needy. It was still, strong, like the house itself had leaned in to hear what I'd do next. I didn't speak. She didn't repeat herself. We just sat in it, her words echoing in the quiet. And for the first time that night, I realized something terrifying and beautiful. She meant it. I didn't move. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't trust myself to move at all. Her words still echoed in my head. You can touch me if you want. A simple sentence, softly spoken, but it felt like a seismic shift, like the floor had quietly cracked beneath us and neither of us acknowledged it yet. Leah sat motionless, watching me with that same unreadable calm. Her expression didn't change. She didn't lean in or pull back. She just existed in the moment, letting it stretch until I decided whether to break it or let it linger forever. My fingers twitched around the mug. I don't think I should, I said, my voice barely audible. She didn't blink. I didn't say you should. I said you could. That distinction hit harder than I expected. There was no pressure in her tone, no expectation, just permission. My heart hammered in my chest. It felt like too much and not enough all at once. I looked down at the smooth surface of the counter, at her hand resting near the edge, palm down, relaxed, her fingers close enough that if I reached out, I could brush them. But I didn't, because I knew what it would mean if I did. I've thought about it, I said quietly. I know, she replied. You knew? I'm not blind, she said again, and this time her voice was softer. And I'm not stupid. I forced a dry laugh. I feel like I am. She tilted her head slightly. Why? Because I don't know what this is. Her gaze didn't waver. It doesn't have to be anything. But it already is, I said, looking back up at her. Isn't it? A beat passed. Then, for the first time, her calm broke, just a little. She exhaled, her shoulders rising, then falling slowly, and there was a faint crease at the corner of her brow. Not regret, not fear, just thought. I didn't mean for this to happen, she said. Neither did I. But we're here. That was the truth of it. Not a fantasy, not some passing spark. It was happening in real time, in this dim kitchen, after midnight, with the scent of tea and summer air pressing in through the half-cracked window. She leaned back slightly, shifting the robe around her legs again. Her thigh brushed against mine beneath the counter, just for a second, but she didn't move away. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was thick with decisions. I looked at her hand again. My fingers lifted slightly, hovered over the surface of the counter, then dropped back down. She noticed. I won't ask again, she said gently. I know. Her eyes stayed on mine for a long time. The kind of look that wasn't about flirtation or seduction. It was steady, acknowledging. A look that said, we're both adults, and we both know the cost of crossing this line. I should go upstairs, I said again. Get some sleep. You should, she said. But she didn't move. Neither did I. I stood up slowly, leaving the stool behind. She turned slightly in her seat, watching me. Her robe shifted with her movement, the tie loosening just enough for me to catch a glimpse of the skin beneath. Her collarbone, the inside curve of her shoulder, the line of her chest. I looked away. Good night. She reached for her mug again. Good night. I turned to walk out, but paused in the doorway. I don't know why. Maybe I hoped she'd say something else. Maybe I just wanted one more look. But I stood there, motionless, with my hand on the frame, feeling like the moment had marked me. And then I heard it. I wasn't testing you. I turned. She was still looking at her tea, not at me. I know, I said. That was it. I didn't go back in. I didn't reach out. I climbed the stairs slowly, one creaking step at a time, like the house itself was reminding me where I was. The door to the guest room felt heavier than usual when I closed it behind me. But I didn't sleep. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling fan, watching it turn in slow, hypnotic circles. The night was warm, too warm, and the air felt heavier now. I kept seeing her, the way she looked at me, the stillness of her voice, the calm of her posture, even as she cracked the world open with a single sentence. You can touch me if you want. It wasn't a dare. It was truth, and it changed everything. I woke to light, not sound. The sun had already pulled itself halfway into the sky by the time I opened my eyes. The guest room was quiet, soft and still, the way rooms get after too much thinking and not enough sleep. I hadn't dreamed. Or if I had, the line between memory and imagination was already too blurred to tell. I sat up slowly, stretching, my body heavy, but my mind sharp. The memory of last night hadn't dulled in the slightest. If anything, it felt more vivid in the calm of morning. The way her voice had settled into the kitchen air, the calm stillness in her eyes, the space between us pulsing with all the things we didn't do. I got dressed, simple t-shirt, drawstring pants, and made my way downstairs, barefoot. The floor was cool against my skin. Familiar, but the air felt different, like something invisible had been rearranged overnight. She was in the kitchen. Of course she was. Leah stood by the sink, her back to me, pouring water into the kettle. She wore a loose t-shirt that fell just past the middle of her thighs and nothing else I could see. Her hair was tied up in a messy knot, a few strands falling along her neck. Barefoot, casual, still. She didn't turn around. "I heard you come down," she said. Her voice was quiet, not tense, not even awkward, just aware. I stepped into the room slowly. "Didn't mean to wake you." "You didn't." She turned slightly, enough to glance at me over her shoulder. "Tea?" I nodded. "Sure." She reached for a second mug and poured without asking what kind. Chamomile again. She knew. We sat at the kitchen island like the night before, only now the sunlight had replaced the warm shadows. The space between us hadn't grown. If anything, it felt smaller, compressed. I wrapped my hands around the mug, more for something to do than anything else. She stirred hers gently, watching the spoon go in slow circles. Neither of us spoke for a long time. The silence wasn't cold, but it wasn't warm either. It was careful. Finally, she broke it. "I meant it, by the way. What I said last night." Her voice was even, measured. Her eyes never left her tea. I didn't say anything right away. I wasn't sure what she wanted me to do with that sentence. What I could do. "I know," I said finally. She nodded like she'd expected that answer. Like the conversation wasn't for resolution, just acknowledgement. "I thought about it after you went upstairs," she said. How quiet it got. How loud the silence felt. "Yeah," I murmured. "Same." She looked at me now, really looked. Not like last night. Not charged. Not intense. Just real. "I'm not someone who plays games," she said. "I never have been. I don't think you are. But last night, that wasn't nothing. And I don't want to pretend it didn't happen. I'm not pretending." She smiled faintly. "You haven't touched your tea." I looked down, then took a small sip. It was warm. Familiar. Bittersweet. I didn't know what to say, I admitted. "I still don't." "That's okay." Another pause. She shifted in her seat, pulling one leg up onto the stool, folding it beneath her. It made her look smaller. Softer. Not like the woman in the robe who offered me permission in the dark. "I'm not trying to confuse you," she said. "You're not." "Then what am I doing?" I didn't answer. She set her mug down gently. The click of ceramic on stone sounded louder than it should have. "Last night scared me a little," she said. "Not because of what I felt, but because I felt it at all. I know what you mean. I shouldn't feel that way. Not about you. Not in this house. You're not related to me," I said quietly. "That's not the point." She looked away, toward the window. The backyard was bathed in golden morning light. Birds chirped somewhere beyond the trees. "I don't regret it," she added. "I just don't know what it means yet." I nodded, staring into my tea. Me neither. She sighed. I don't want to hurt anyone. You didn't. I might. If this turns into something it shouldn't. What if it already is? She met my eyes again, and for a long time, we just stayed like that. Neither of us blinking, neither of us trying to fix it, explain it, or run from it. She reached forward and gently placed her hand on mine. Not a romantic gesture, not a move, just contact. Warm, real. I'm not asking for anything, she said. I just needed you to know I meant it. That it wasn't a moment of weakness. I believe you. And if you ever do want to reach across that line, she hesitated. I won't stop you. The words weren't seductive. They weren't even suggestive. They were just honest. I turned my hand slowly and let my fingers curl lightly around hers. She didn't move, didn't flinch. She just stayed there with me, in the stillness of the morning, in the echo of the night before. And that was enough. Not a kiss, not a declaration, just stillness. Something alive, something real, something quietly waiting for what might come next.